Do I think there's enough education in the rugby scene? Yes, I think it's getting a lot better in professional rugby. I think there's a lot of things in place. The RPA, the Rugby Players Association, now have player development officers who work for clubs. We have a guy called Ben McGregor who works with us in Wasps. So his sole purpose is to help guys with interests outside of rugby. Quins have also employed someone recently who's doing something fairly similar across the whole company, so including the office as well. So I do think it's something that rugby's beginning to catch up on. I don't think it's been great in the past. When I was a young player, the academy system was just starting when I first left school, and I think the big focus was finding a way to make that as good as it could be, which is understandable because obviously at the end of the day we're in a rugby business and they wanted to make the players as good as they could at a young age. But I think that was the focus because rugby was still relatively, it had only been professional for 6 or 7 years when I first started, so the academy thing was new. They wanted players to focus on that, and if you wanted to go and do something, some sort of qualification, then that was your call, and kind of good luck to you. I'm not saying they were never against it, they never suggested you wouldn't do it, but you didn't have the active help that you do now, and I think it's excellent for the young guys. It's something I really push. Yeah, I suppose I can probably link that up to my other answer. I've had personal experience of that. I had a serious head injury when I was 20 years old. I thought I might not be able to play rugby again. As it turned out, I could. It was something the doctors didn't know a huge amount about, and Quins were great with me. They let me come back and work through that. And you know, touch wood, it's been fine for the last 7 years, and I've been very lucky that I've been able to go on and play. I've also had serious knee injuries, and so I had a lot of challenges to me even having any sort of real meaningful career when I was quite young. And it's something I went to a pretty good school, got a decent education, so it's something that I've always held close to me, that I wanted to go and do something more. And I think when you have injuries and you have downs like that, I think it's a horrible experience, and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, especially when you think you might not be able to play again, when you don't feel like you've achieved what you want to achieve. But the one positive I'd say you take from it is that it helps to really put things in perspective. And for me, I came into a position where I was probably a good schoolboy player, never really got injured. You always got to, be a bit of a superstar at school, like most guys who go into professional rugby are. And I just thought, oh, this will last forever and I'm great and nothing will ever go wrong and I'll just keep on going up and up and up. And as I've said before, that can happen if you're incredibly lucky. But for the vast majority of professional sportsmen, and certainly professional rugby players, that doesn't happen. So I got that perspective, and I got the appreciation of, wow, I'm lucky to be doing what I'm doing, first and foremost, so I need to make the most of it, don't take it for granted. And the flip side is I know it's going to end one day. Hopefully that'll be when I choose for it to end in my 30s, but it might be when I'm 21 years old. And so you always need to think about those things, and it's something that I try to talk to the boys about at Quins, and obviously everyone's different. That's another of the great things about rugby. You've got a lot of different guys from different areas, different upbringings, different interests. So, a guy might go, oh, well, I actually, you're Tom Reese's at Wasps, or there's guys here who want to go and do medicine or architecture, and that's something that they've got in the back of their mind and they want to do at some point, or they'll work towards it during rugby. And there might be some guys who didn't do that well at school, have no interest in education, but they want to be a carpenter, or they want to be a plumber, or they want to be a baker or a hairdresser, which probably wouldn't surprise me with a couple of the boys. But I just think having that interest, whether it is education, which it was for me, and going off and doing something and setting a grounding for yourself to go on and do other things, or doing a course, or just having something outside of rugby which can take away your focus and give you that perspective. Obviously, hopefully it's not a horrendous injury, although when boys have that, it does tend to, as I say, put things in perspective. But I think it's so important because a good mate of mine at Quins, a guy called Ollie Cohn, who's a big second rower. He runs his own business outside of rugby, actually. He's got a family, so he's got all sorts of interests. But we talk about rugby as being a bit of a roller coaster. Like, you buy your ticket at the start of every season and you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. You're going to have ups and downs, but you can't do anything about it. You're in the season, you just ride it out. And I think it's more of a roller coaster if you don't have that perspective, if you don't have other things in life to flatten it out. Because if you live and breathe every day of rugby, then one day you'll play great, you'll win, it's the best job in the world, you're up here, and then the next week you lose, you miss a tackle to lose a game, you knock on a ball and you're down here. And there's plenty of guys I've come across in rugby who live their life like that, and when things are going well, they're the best guy in the world to be around, and when things are going badly, I've got no interest in talking to them, to be honest. Future rugby, there's two things with that which spring to mind for me. One, from a player welfare point of view, again going back to injuries. This is probably coming across as quite a negative thing, but it's something which has played a large part in my career. And again, the vast majority of rugby players will have had some sort of reasonably serious injury or surgery or something during their career. And it is a concern for rugby. The amount of career-ending injuries is going up. We were just discussing before, I think Wasps had maybe 5 in a season last year. That's one club in one season had 5 career-ending injuries. Rugby is getting bigger. The decade I've been playing, bigger, stronger. The hits are huge. It's quicker, and you are getting a lot more injuries. And the positives are, it's more athletic, it's more explosive, and you get to see some great rugby. And the downsides can be the players and their own welfare. I think it's okay at the moment, it's just about manageable, but in 10, 15 years' time, it does concern me that rugby's going to reach a point where the just pure volume of injuries might become a concern for the powers that be that run it, which is why I think we need some, and it's getting there, it's getting better. There's things like concussion bins coming in to look after guys with head knocks, which is a big area of concern when you look at places like American football, where that's become a really big issue recently. But I think we need some really strong guidelines in place for player welfare, which can't be bent and can't be moved around, because at the end of the day, the players are the industry. The players are what make rugby a great sport to watch and why people love it, and they need to be looked after. And it's good. We're certainly heading in the right direction, but we don't want to get to a point where there's too many guys getting injured. It's getting to a point where you actually start balancing out whether it's worth it. So that's one thing I'd say. That's just a personal opinion for me. And then the other one is just the amount of money coming into rugby, which is great in a lot of ways, raising the profile, big sponsorship, more on TV, and all the benefits that come with that for the players. I think that's fantastic. All I'd say is that rugby just needs to learn the lessons of other big sports that have had pitfalls in the past. Like football is the perfect example, with clubs that have gone boom and bust, and your Leeds United, your Portsmouth Hearts at the moment, and Rangers would be 4 examples where they've invested money which they might not have had, and they've been sort of walking this fragile tightrope, and then something changes, they start losing, things don't go as well, they don't qualify for the Champions League like Leeds United, and all of a sudden the whole house of cards collapse. So I think the ambition for rugby should be to grow and get more money and get more fans, and that's fantastic. But we need to do it in a way which means it's a sustainable business, because rugby doesn't have 40 or 50 clubs that can come and play in the Premiership at the moment, and probably won't do for a long time. And so the brands that exist in rugby at the moment, the really strong brands and the big names, it's really important that they survive and thrive for the sake of domestic rugby in England. So hopefully the money will be a good thing and will help with investment and providing more for rugby, and it won't have the negative influence of forcing people to spend beyond their means and rely on big money investors. And it's been proved that can be pretty fragile. So they'd be my 2 things for the future of rugby, I think.